Okay, we are good. So today is not like anything substantial or big. Um, Today we're just writing some articles because we gotta write some stuff. So, I basically I want to write articles for all the mod integration stuff that I have for DDD. And then if I have some time, I'll write some articles about I'll look at some other articles and maybe try and refine them and stuff. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing today. Just writing some very chill articles. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So is where I'm gonna be writing it. I'm gonna be writing it in Atom because it works fundamentally. So I think it's Control N for new file. It is. Okay, so I want to start with something pretty simple, and that is Construct's Armory. The wiki has a page for Tinker's Construct, but does not have a page for Construct's Armory. So we're going to start by remedying that. I just want to see how these other articles are formatted. Honestly, don't need that. Okay. This article won't be very big. It'll be pretty straightforward. I just want to check exactly how this works. I believe I can do that by going to the Conarm book. Nope. This. Armor plates determine your armor's distribution. You have to balance which damage types you want against toughness and durability plates. Armor only provides effectiveness and immunities if it's not broken. Okay. So, hello. Welcome to my writing or whatever. I don't know. Whatever this is. How are things? I think I want, like, Control Shift M. Yeah, there we go. I believe it's wiki making. And not too bad, heading to a dentist appointment in a bit. Ah, yes, yes. Well, best of luck, I suppose, is the notion here. Now, what does it say for con arm? That's the armor distribution. Plates formatter. Thanks, it's at 1. Ah, okay. Armor material dist. Get or fall back to default. So this is... I would like to know how it works, but... Well, I know how it works. I'd like to see it. Because I don't think it has, I should probably launch the game. I didn't want to have to do that, so I wasn't ready to do that, but I should probably launch the game so that I can look at stuff. It's probably going to be useful. So... Do I... Oh, but I can... Wait a second. I am a genius. Hold on. Where is the tooltips? It uses armor resistances, which is armor effectiveness. Right, okay, so it'll state its armor effectiveness. Tinker's does something else. Yeah, because it's distribution bias and influence, but this is just, okay, I get it. I get it. All right. So it's basically an armor effectiveness, or I should say it's an armor distribution. Basically an armor distribution. And the plates are used... Should I want to say when they are used? No. We'll have an armor distribution that matches the armor effectiveness of the corresponding plates. plates piece. So I'm writing an article on Construct's Armory, which basically it's customizable armor. I've used it in Vengeance Craft. Vengeance Craft has Construct's Armory. And so with DDD, you can actually change the armor distribution depending on what plates you put on your armor, right? And so I'm just writing a wiki article. It's basically saying that. It's pretty simple, so this article is not going to be very long. Is it gonna... There we go. A set of armor traits that grant immunities. I believe there's a config for that. Immunity trait record, yeah. This should write... Or sorry, this should read... Yeah, it reads the immunities. Well, this reads the immunities. Does it create... Yeah, it makes a new one for each trait record. Oh, for each damage type, it creates a thing. Yeah, okay. And then where does it... Okay, and then that's the thing. Okay, okay. Okie doke. I know what I'm doing. Automatically creates immunity traits for every damage type on startup. They can be applied to one of the config says where, right? It says trait location, plates, or core. I imagine. Yeah, core plates. Okay. Okay. That's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm writing it out anyway. And then what does the config do? It are pieces of the material. In the config, unit traits can be given to a specific material, and the unit traits can be given to either the core pieces or plates pieces. Unit traits for material, and immunity traits can be given to either all the core pieces or all the plates pieces. And we can fully immune to damage type. Lang key. Any damage type, you look for the following lang keys. Is it modify your singular? Okay. Internal name of the damage type, DDD prefix excluded. This is the same. Oh wait, no. This is this dot name. This is the same thing, but DSC. Right? Yeah. Okay. So then I'm going to put the example for what this is, which is this. For italics and resetting formatting respectively. That's a really weird sentence, but whatever, that works. So now if they want to make a custom damage type and they want to have a damage type immunity, they know exactly what they need to do. In fact, they even want the italics, they can just replace this part, leave the other bits in there, and then do that. So then basically they would just take and replace this bit, and then they would replace this bit, and then they would replace this bit, and then they would, they would change the thunder part to whatever the damage type is. Now this I want to link to this. An example isn't really needed here because it's not. It just isn't. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to get rid of these. There we go. That's that article done. That was easy. Wasn't really expecting that to be hard. And now we're going to do the next most logical one, which is to do tetra. So let's see. Tetra, tetra, tetra. So the tetra integration, it's very similar. The capability, okay, what does capability do? The capability gets the sword root, which is sword blade, if it's a sword. If it's a duplex tool, then it looks for duplex root. And if it's a butt, we don't care about it. We map it, and then we get the tool bias resistance, and then it's the same kind of thing. Wait, does it have... Oh, there is a distribution bias. What? Dude, I'm fascinated. Hold on. That's wild. I didn't even know that it had that. See, this is why I gotta write these articles. Yeah, I don't remember what this integration is, cause when did I do this integration? This integration is probably a year or two old, so I forgot how it works. Tetra works very similarly to Tinker's construct, which is pretty much the only reason why I've added integration for it. But I need to know how this works, and I need the game to... Dude, CurseForge's been open for 5 years. What do you mean you can't freaking launch my thing? Launch my game. So it has a distribution bias. Tool bias resistance, get or fallback default, type dot replace suffix. What's a suffix? 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 Where's the suffix? Oh, right, because it's... Type. What is type? Duplex root plus suffix. Right, okay. Oh, because you could have like a duplex for like an axe or like a pickaxe or whatever, so like they have different tool biases. And then you have a tool material bias, and you get a bias distribution map. And it basically works the exact same way. I swear, why do I have to launch this thing 3 times? Load? It's not responding. Cool. Someone's gonna end up in a fucking car accident. And I suppose it like averages the maps together. You bias maps. If the size is not 0, you get it and you divide by size, yeah. And then you bada boink. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I thought was happening. Okay, cool. I'm so pissed. Is it my computer that just lacks the ability to be able to launch it unless I do it 3 times in a row? Like, is this the ritual I need to perform, or is it just because this fucking program sucks balls? I don't know. Because, you know, there's a non-zero chance that it's because it's... Why did my OBS freeze? Oh gosh, dude. What a day. Alright. But we're there. We're gonna... We're gonna go and we're gonna fucking do it. All right. It's allegedly loading. Whatever. Okay, so we got all that. I know I don't have the code. Like, I have the code open, but I don't have it showing on stream because really all I'm doing is looking at stuff, so it's fine. So, okay, there is a tool bias. Bias, I can spell. And then there is a material bias. It works basically the exact same as Tinker's construct. This article is going to look very similar. And then I guess there's a material influence as well. Material, that's not how you spell that. And then we have bringing it together. And then we have an example. Using default values from the config. Honestly, structuring it the exact same makes a lot of sense. Because I don't need... I don't need to write it differently if it works very similarly. Yeah, no. This is going to be tetra dot md. Yep, okay. I have tetra, like, enabled, right? I'm gonna piss if I turn it off. Okay, thank God. Alright. I don't even know where my game is. Hurry up. Stop not responding. Start actually responding. Wow. Concept. I'm probably not going to actually need the console for this because I'm just looking at something that I know should already work. But if I go here to compatibility / integration, under Tetra integration, we have tool material distributions and Tetra tool part base distributions. Whoa, wait, this is not what I have been promised. Okay. This is how the base tool part gets modified. Oh wait, no, it is. I have no idea. This is how the base tool part distribution gets modified. The format is MBT tag distribution bias, where MBT tag is a material name found in item MBT. Only a material name is needed. The part type reference in the tag should not be included here. That is, you only need to specify the material once, not for each part it's usable in. Okay, fair enough. Distribution the distribution material has as specified in item distributions. Bias is the measure of how well this material influences parts. Difference between this and the toolpart bias. The difference between this and the toolpart bias is used to determine how much this material influences the parts distribution. A tool like /CT NBT or an NBT editor is great for finding the material names. All the default values are included here. Bada boink. Okay. And what does this say? This says modify base distributions for Tetra tool parts. This is the distribution that gets modified by the material used. The format is MBT tag distribution bias, where MBT tag is the MBT tag for the part type. Blade parts are blade parts are prefixed? Is that a word? Can you say it like that? Okay. They're prefixed with /, and duplex parts are prefixed with /. Duplex tools don't need to specify left or right heads. The same is used for both. Tool butts don't count towards duplex tool distributions, so the entry duplex butt can be omitted. Distribution is a distribution list as specified in item distributions. Bias is the bias this part has towards this distribution. The difference between this and material bias is used to determine how much the material influences the distribution. A tool like /CT MBT or an MBT editor can be used to find the MBT tag names. All the defaults are included here. So, a heavy blade is slashing bludgeoning with 0.5 bias, right? And then this machete is slashing with 1, and this basic blade, short blade, the adze, claw, basic axe, basic hammer, basic pickaxe, hoe, and sickle. So I'm thinking what I want to do here is I actually want to write this differently. I want to write this differently. What I want is to find my scene. Okay, so what I want to do is this is what it says in whatever, right? But according to that's what it says for like Tinkers, right? But according to what this says, we have tetra material distributions and tetra tool part distributions, right? So we're gonna have material distributions and tool part distributions. It's basically just a different flavor. The material influence is already kind of included in the material distributions, and then we have this. So we have slightly less sections here, but that's fine. So each valid material in Tetra has a distribution, has a base material distribution. This distribution attempts to influence, that's how you spell influence, influence. This distribution attempts the influence? What am I writing, dude? What am I writing? Attempts to influence Tetra Tools base distribution. Which is basically what I wrote here, right? The material distribution also includes a bias rating, which is a measure of how well this material can alter a tool's distribution. Each tetra tool part, with the exception of duplex butts. What a weird sentence. Has a tool part distribution. This is the base distribution that gets modified by the material the part is made out of. A tool part distribution also has a bias rating, which is a measure of how easily a tool part's distribution can be modified. A higher bias rating makes it harder to modify the distribution. I should probably include this here. A higher bias rating means the material is more easily able to alter a tool part's distribution. And now we do this. To compute the distribution of a Tetra tool, DDD performs the following steps. Swords. So for swords, what we do is we basically do this. Okay. The type of sword is the tool part distribution for the type of sword blade is found. The bias rating is recorded. Actually, I think I can do this. Yeah, I can just do that. That's fine. The material distribution for the sword blade is found. Right? And then what we do the bias rating for the material is used with the bias rating for the tool to determine an overall bias. An overall bias, which is, there we go, that's what I was looking. Material bias rating minus tool part bias rating. Each weight in the material, oh wait, tool bias rate, this value is clamped between 0 and 1. That's important. I'm going to call this an overall bias. Each weight in the material distribution is multiplied by the overall bias. Each weight in the tool distribution is multiplied by 1 minus overall bias. The results are combined into a singular distribution. Any weights in common with the tool distribution and the material distribution are added together. The result will be a valid damage distribution. The the tool part distribution for the I can do this better. I don't need this. I don't know if I want to say each Tetra tool part tool head part, that is sword parts and duplex parts, with the exception of duplex butts. There we go, that's a better thing. Because the tool rod and like the guards or whatever don't influence the distribution, obviously. For the head parts, the material distribution for each of the head parts. The material distribution for each of the materials, for the material... There's a better way to write this. For each headpiece, that is, a sword, blade, or duplex head that isn't a duplex butt. There we go, that's better. The tool part distribution for the head part is found. I don't need to include that. Bias rate recording, bias rate is recorded. Material distribution for the tool part. The material distribution for the material the tool part is made of is found. The bias rating for the material is used with the bias rating for the tool to determine overall bias, which is material bias rating minus tool part bias rating. Size clamped between 0 and 1. Each weight in the material distribution is multiplied by the overall bias. Each weight in the tool distribution is multiplied by 1 minus overall bias. The results are combined together into a single distribution. Any weights in common with the tool distribution and material distribution are added together. The result will be a valid damage distribution. Bada boink. If multiple head pieces are present, a duplex tool without a butt as one of the head pieces be a valid damage distribution called a bias damage distribution. The bias damage distributions are averaged together. If there is only one head piece, the resulting bias damage distribution is the tool's I should boop. I should do this. Multiple head pieces are present. The bias energies are averaged together, and that result is the tool's damage distribution. Makes sense? Okay, so if I use this, I should be able to, theoretically, compute in advance, using this, the tool distribution for a Tetra tool, and then I can verify that it's correct in game. So, let's look at our materials. And we have log acacia, birch, dark oak, jungle oak. I don't know what the difference is, but it's there. Spruce, stone, cobblestone, diorite, granite, andesite, flint, iron, gold, diamond, obsidian. And so let's try obsidian. Let's try obsidian gold. All right, obsidian gold. Let's try that. It's going to be an obsidian. We'll go with an obsidian adze. No, obsidian axe and gold. What's gold gonna be? Gold is 0.4. I'm gonna do gold axe and obsidian claw. Nah. Obsidian hoe. Yeah. Obsidian hoe. This will actually make the calculation somewhat interesting. Take a duplex tool with a gold basic axe head and an obsidian claw head. For each headpiece, the bias damage distribution is computed. Since none of the heads are butts, they are both used. We'll start with the gold. We'll go with gold basic axe head. Head. An obsidian claw. Gold basic axe head. Okie dokie. This headpiece is made of gold. Gold has a material distribution of Alright, gotta move this over here. Okay, gold has gold. Half bludgeoning, half piercing with a 0.4 bias rating. Percent bludgeoning, 50% piercing, 50% bludgeoning, and 50% piercing with a 40% bias rating. The basic axe head has a tool part distribution of, what is this? The basic axe is 60 slashing, 40 bludgeoning with a 30% bias. 60% slashing. It's bludgeoning, right? Yeah, it's bludgeoning. 60% slashing and 40% bludgeoning. That's not how you spell that. With a 30% bias rating. The overall bias is the material bias minus the toolpart bias, which is 40% minus 30% equals 10%. Factoring in the toolpart distribution and the material distribution, we have a bias damage distribution that is this is going to be, so it's a 10%. So each weight in the material distribution is multiplied by the overall bias. So we have 50 and 50. So this is going to be 0.1 times 50% equals, well, this is bludgeoning. Bludgeoning equals 5%, right? Am I dumb? 0.1. Yeah, it's 5%. 5% bludgeoning. And then we have 0.1 times 50% for piercing is 5% piercing. And then we have the tool, which is 60 slashing, 40 bludgeoning. So it's going to be 1 minus 0.1 times 60% for the slashing is going to be 0.9, which is 54, right? 54% slashing. I don't think that's wrong. I'll double check my math. 1 minus 0.9, 1, excuse me, times 40%, and this is for bludgeoning, and that's going to be 36, right? Right, because this is basically multiply 40 by 0.1, that gives you 4, then multiply it by 9, that gives you 36. And it's the same thing for that. So how does this even... Oh, do I just tab this in? Wow, look, you tab it in. But maybe not that much. There we go. And so the final bias damage distribution is... Okay, so 54% slashing, 5% piercing, and 41% bludgeoning. Note that this distribution actually adds to 100%, which it needs to. I want this to not be like that, but I want there to be a gap there. Whatever, I don't care. It doesn't really matter. I don't think so. Okay, so now I have the obsidian claw head. This headpiece is made of obsidian. Do I really want to use a claw? A claw. What does a claw have? It's 0.5. And obsidian is 0.6. Maybe not. Maybe don't use a claw. Because it's going to be the same kind of calculation. Maybe a sickle. That's 0.4. And then we'll get like, you know. Let's use a sickle. Obsidian has a material distribution of 80 slashing, 20 bludgeoning. Okay. 80% slashing and 20% bludgeoning. Blood gonging? What? With 60% bias rating. The sickle head has a tool part bias, or sorry, a tool part distribution of, I think it's just sickly. Yeah, it's just slashing. Okay, this is actually good. Of 100% slashing with a 40% bias rating. The overall bias is material minus tool, which is 60% minus 40%, which is 20%. Factoring in the tool part distribution and the material distribution, we have biased damage distribution that is the following. Is going to be 0.2 times the obsidian stuff, right? And that's going to be 80% slashing. So it's 80% for slashing. And that's going to get us 64%? No, I'm doing it the other way around. 16% slashing. Right? Because it's... yeah. And then this is going to be 0.2 times 20% for, I believe it's piercing? No, it's bludgeoning. And that's going to get us 4% bludgeoning. And then it's going to be 1 minus 0.2, which is going to be 0.8 times 100% for slashing. And that's going to be 80% slashing. So it's going to be 96 slashing for bludgeoning. Interesting. And so the final bias damage distribution is 16% slashing. Sorry, no, not 16%. 96% slashing. And 4% bludgeoning. Note that again, not that again. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. Note that again, the distribution adds to 100%. Now, not this. The two bias damage distributions are averaged together. This results in a final damage distribution of so I have this. Okay, half the piercing. Half the piercing is easy. This is 2.5% piercing. We know that. I need whatever slashing, and I need whatever bludgeoning. Okay, so the bludgeoning, we have 2% bludgeoning here, plus 41, which is going to be 20.5. So 22.5 bludgeoning, I believe. Bludgeoning. And this is 54 slashing and 96 slashing. So that's 150. This is 75% slashing, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and then adds to 100%. Because it's 75, and then 22.5 plus 2.5, that's going to get 25. 25 and 75 is 100%, so this works. Which all adds to 100%. Boom. That's the example calculation. Now, what we're going to actually do, we're going to verify that that actually is what it is. Right? Because that would be important. So it was golden axe, and obsidian sickle. Now, hopefully I remember how Tetra works. I think it's all the way at the end. No, it's not. It is here. Crafting table. Let's move this. Whoa, dude. I was spinning. Dude, I am spinning. Now let's grab ourselves, if I'm not mistaken, I remember how this works. Right, so this goes in here, right? And it has a thing. And so what I want to do is I need to grab a piece of obsidian, or maybe a couple pieces of obsidian. I think I need other stuff. I don't know. Can I change this out? Oh, I craft. Basic handle. Handle material. I don't know what else you can make the handles out of. I guess I can make it out of iron, right? For example. Probably. Yeah. Alright, so now it has an iron hammer. Uh... I'm not sure how this fully works. Let's, I guess, maybe string. Oh. I don't know if I need the string binding, but... And as we've verified, this is actually the distribution for the golden axe, 54, 5, and 41. So, like, this is fine. Oh, I don't think I can use obsidian to make a sickle. That's unfortunate. Oh, well, that changes everything, dude. I can make an obsidian hammer. Well, We have to go back to the config because you can't make an obsidian sickle. You gotta know what it is. I guess the obsidian can only be used on the sword. Okay. I'll use like a. Can I make like a diamond hoe? Okay. Yeah, I can. It will let me. Okay, good to know. Make a diamond hoe. So we have to go back to the article because that is not how that works. Okay, so a diamond hoe. Find obsidian claw head. Or, I'm sorry, obsidian sickle. And then replace obsidian with diamond. And replace sickle head. I guess diamond hoe head. Nah, just diamond hoe, because it doesn't say. Nah, we're gonna say head. So sickle is just gonna turn into hoe. Diamond hoe head. Headpiece made of diamond. Diamond is material distribution of not that. Now to figure out what that material distribution is, which I believe is just slashing. Diamond is slashing. Yep. Okay. So the material distribution of 100% slashing with a 50% bias rating. The hoe head has a tool part distribution of 100% piercing with a 30% bias rating. The overall bias is still 20%. Factoring tool part distribution and material distribution, it's going to be this times 100 slashing is going to be 20 slashing, and there's no bludgeoning. And then this is piercing, which is 80% piercing. Is 20% slashing and 80% piercing. All right, because we have that. That makes sense. Now the two bias damage distributions are averaged together. We have 54 slashing and 20 slashing, which is now different at 74. So in half, the bludgeoning is still, no, this is 20.5 now. The piercing is 42.5, if I'm not mistaken. Because it's 85, 42.5, yeah. This is 10, and this is 27. So this should be 37 slashing, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, so this 0.5 and this 0.5 can make that a 3. That's 4, 8. Yeah, that adds to 100%. Okay, good. Good. Now, let's actually see if it is what I have computed it to be, which I believe it should be because I seem to be... Oh my gosh, dude. Home material. Craft this. 20.5 bludgeoning, 42.5 piercing, 37 slashing. It's arrested! What? Okay, whatever. It's gold. That's its name. Its name is gold. My mouse sensitivity felt way too high there for a second. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so that is this. Okay. It's just gold. Why is it just called gold? I don't know why it's just called gold, but it is. Slashing 3.88, 4.46. How much damage does this do? 7. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, wait. I should probably have it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that adds. That adds. So that's cool. And that's the Tetra. That is the Tetra article. And I feel like that pretty adequately describes how that works. Okay, so next on the list is not Tetra, because we did Tetra. And it's not Conarm, because we did Conarm. Let me just close all of that. And I made the changes to Lycanites that I needed to make here. So now Spartan weaponry is a compat, so we don't need to worry about that right now. Tech guns is a compat, which we don't need to worry about as well. In fact, tech guns is just so it works, so I probably don't Really, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. We're gonna deal with that. Thaumcraft is an integration. We'll get to that. Between Lands is a compat. Wait, I can just figure it. Wait, what? I'm making this way more complicated on myself. Just go to this. There's Construct Arteries, Tinkers, Lycanites, Tetras. There's Huela, which I guess I can maybe write a small article on. The Baubles, that's the big thing. Electroblobs and Thaumcraft. Okie dokie. Do I do Huela? Does Huela need an article? Probably. But maybe I do Baubles next. Baubles seems to make the most sense. Okay. Okie doke. Bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. Okay, so we can add special properties to baubles. In particular, we have damage thingy. There is damage mod, resistance mod, brute force, slice strike immunity. Right, okay. There are 5 properties that DDD can add to a bauble, and DDD can add multiple properties of the same type and slash or multiple properties of different types to the same bauble. Each property will be defined in the config file. This is baubles.md. Damage mod is the first one, which boosts damage dealt of type T by 8%. The value cannot be negative. Can be negative to reduce distance, but will not reduce it below 0. Okay, well, I want to quickly check here. Is suppose I bobble it up. I don't even know where it is. Okay, get me the ring. Uh-huh. Here we are, the miner's ring, while equipped. plus 20% piercing damage, plus 10% force damage. Is that what I said there? What? This is in combat wobbles. Oh, yeah. Multiple types can be specified on the same line. Okay, I'm going to very quickly verify, without falling off, that this does... Yeah, okay, so increased my slashing damage, but since I didn't have any... Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Allows damage of a specific type or types to be increased when the bauble is worn. The damage will only be increased if the damage of that type is inflicted. For example, a ring that increases force damage by 10% will not actually cause attacks that don't inflict force damage to now inflict force damage. It just increases any force damage that is dealt by 10%. Multiple types can be specified at a time in the config, and they each boost damage individually. That is, if a bauble specifies a 20% boost to piercing, that is, actually, I'd say for example, the bauble specifies 20% boost to piercing and 10% boost to force, and an attack only inflicts piercing, the piercing damage will still be boosted. Both types don't have to be present to receive the bonus, to receive their respective bonuses. You gotta get going? Alright, thanks for tuning in. I'll keep writing away. You have a good appointment. That's a damage mod. And then there is the resistance mod. The resistance mod allows the wearer to receive bonus resistances. And this basically works exactly as it says on the tin. You wear it, you get a resistance. So there's nothing super complicated about that. The resistance model allows the wearer to receive bonus resistances. Wearing the bauble effectively increases the wearer's resistance to whatever types of bauble specifies by the specified amount. Really nothing super complicated there. Add 8% resistance to type T when taking damage. The value for A can be negative to reduce resistance. Oh yeah, I should specify that. The value, the bonus damage can actually be specified to be negative, and it will reduce damage, but it will not reduce damage below 0. The bonus to resistances is only applied when taking damage. Any other, I don't want to say source, mechanic that looks at an entity's resistances will not see the bonus resistance unless it is doing so when the wearer is taking damage. It's temporary resistance only. Bonus resistance can actually be specified to be negative, and it will reduce resistance, and if reduced below 0, it will effectively function as a temporary weakness when taking damage. Boom. Okay, that's good. This property is denoted in the config by operation 0. Okay, we're getting places. And then there's brute force. Modifier allows attacks made by the wearer to bypass a certain amount of resistance to a specific type. Having a brute force modifier of 50% for slashing, for example, will effectively reduce all mobs' slashing resistance by 50% when attacking, but will not reduce it below 0% resistance. It functions identically to... I don't think this can be made to be negative. Now, I do have the enchantments, right? Yeah, I do. Okay. Copy the link. It functions identically to the enchantment of the same name. Property is denoted in the config by operation 2. Allows attacks made by the wearer to bypass immunities to a specific types, I guess. To have a chance to bypass immunities to specific types. It functions identically to... I'm just gonna copy this. However, I'm gonna change this to Slice Strike. However, unlike the enchantment, this modifier can be configured to only have a % chance of actually working on every hit. The % chance is computed for each type listed. It's computed independently. The % chance is rolled, I guess, for each type listed independently during damage calculation. I'm pretty sure anyway. I'm gonna verify this and not just start talking up my ass. Unlike the enchantment, this is not mutually exclusive with the Sly Strike modifier. Unlike the enchantment, this is not mutually exclusive with the brute force modifier. This property is denoted in the config by operation 3. Very good. Now let's actually check that it actually does that. And the way I'm going to do that is not in game. I'm just going to look at the bubbles handler, I believe. Process bubbles on target. Get true attacker. Brute force / strike. Okay. If it does respond to event, I can respond to event. Yeah, so this has multiple types, right? But this stuff for each. Oh, it's a map. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So for each type and weight, it does a math.random lesson weight remove immunity. It's not compute it and then for each one check against it. It's for each one randomize and then check. So it's actually individually rolled. And the last one is immunity. The immunity modifier grants the wearer a % chance of being immune to all damage of a specific type during damage calculation. I can spell calculation. The immunity is only granted temporarily when taking damage. Any other mechanic that looks at an entity's resistance, or I guess I should say immunities, will not see the immunity unless it is being applied, unless it is being granted when taking damage. Similar to distribution in the config. The weight the purpose of the weight, the function of the weight in the config entry depends on the property. This is applied before Sly Strike is applied. So it is possible. This is applied before Sly Strike. This is applied on the defender before Sly Strike is applied on the attacker. So it is possible to gain gain immunity with this bauble and then have it bypassed by a bauble on the attacker with Sly Strike. I should do this for here too. This is applied on the defender before brute force is applied on the attacker. So it is possible to have some or all of the bonus resistance bypassed by a bauble on the attacker with brute force. This property is denoted in the config by operation 4. I don't know if I need / want. I don't know if I need / want to list the config, because it's listed in the config itself. So, I mean, that, like, works for me, right? So we've done construct, tinkers, like knights, tetra, baubles. I don't know if I need Huela. I probably don't need Huela. Linked throwables, minion capabilities, spell damage info. I don't need that. Okay, so let's make a new thing. This is going to be Electroblobs. What do I want to do here? Linked throwables. Linked throwables for the damage type. Once those give DD a hint as to what damage type a throwable inflicts. Then DD will link a projectile distribution to the item so it shows projectile distribution in a tooltip. This can be done manually through the projectile distribution config. These is just to make it easier. What the hell did I write? These are just... This is just to make it easier. As all you need here is the wizardry damage type it deals, not the full damage distribution. So you specify damage type that isn't defined in the spell damage type distributions. The entry will be ignored. Okay, well, I need to fix that, because that's a typo and a half. This is just to make it easier. Yeah, okay. DDD integrates with Electroblob wizardry to assign damage distributions to spells. And the resistances to minions. So first, we have to start with spell damage type distributions. Wizardry has its own damage type system. Each spell that does damage does each spell. Yeah, I mean, each spell that does damage is assigned one of these wizardry damage types. DDD maps each of these damage types to a damage distribution. This means that two different spells that we're not there yet, actually. Wizardry has its own damage type system. Each spell that does damage is assigned... Whoa. Assigned one of these wizardry damage types. DDD maps each of these damage types to a damage distribution. Integration uses these damage type to damage distribution. Uses these wizardry damage type to damage distribution mappings. Throwables. Throwables in wizardry are associated with their own wizardry damage type, and so can be mapped to a damage distribution without having to specify a projectile distribution in the config. However, in order to have a projectile distribution show up on tooltips, DDD has a config entry to map wizardry projectiles wizardry throwables, I should say, because projectiles is very different. Map wizardry throwables to the wizardry damage type they inflict, which DDD can use to build a dummy projectile distribution tooltip. That's for throwables. Now we do spells. Spells in wizardry are associated with their own wizardry damage type, which, as mentioned, which DDD maps to a damage distribution. However, this damage distribution is not on a per spell basis, but per type basis. All spells that inflict wizardry's shock type will all do the same damage, as DDD cannot define damage distributions on a per spell basis. That is a limitation that is important to list. Now, what does it say here for the spell damage distributions? The config has an entry that lists what spells deal what kind of wizardry damage, and DDD uses this to list a spell distribution when wands have selected to list a spell distribution on wands that have the corresponding spell selected. There you go. To list a spell distribution on wands that have the corresponding spells selected. Okay. I leave that like that. I think that's it. Oh wait, no, the minions, the minions, the minions. Attempts to have minions that are an easy way to configure the resistances of minions if they are minions of a mob that already exists. Configure the damage distributions and resistances of minions if they are minions of mobs that already exists. There is a config entry that lists what mob each minion is, what mob each minion is, and DDD will copy the damage distributions, the damage distribution and resistances of that mob for the minions, for the minion, for the minion, for the minion. There's a config entry. There's a config entry that lists what mob each minion is, and DD will copy the damage distributions and resistances of that mob for the minion. Yeah, that makes sense. This is only for convenience, as one could merely put the same damage distribution and resistances in Does it check it first? Yeah, I should specify that. Merely put the same damage distribution and resistances in the mob damage / resistance config for the minion, with their ID. If the minion does have an entry in the if the minion does have an entry in the mob damage / resistance config, that entry is used over the reference. Is this what I want to call it? Over the this is done for each has only one of only one of mob damage / resistance and not the other. The one it does have is used and the other is copied, provided the minion has a entry in the minion capabilities list. There we go. I don't know, that kind of makes sense. And now I have Thumbcraft. And this is going to work a little similar to like Knights Mobs. We're going to have the like spell distributions, and then we're going to have the special distributions. With Thumbcraft to add customizable distributions to Oromancy spells and special distributions for Taint and Liquid Death. Distributions. Okay, now I need to know how this works. It is aspect distribution. Okay. Oh wait. In order to use DDD's Thumbcraft integration, you need to have Fermium Booter installed. I should call this aspect distributions. Each aspect is assigned a distribution. It is assigned a damage distribution. When casting an Oromancy spell that deals damage, the aspects that deal damage the aspects that have nodes that deal the damage in the spell have their damage distributions averaged together, and that average becomes the damage distribution of the spell. Each aspect is assigned damage distribution. When casting or Mancy spell deals damage, the aspects that have nodes that deal the damage in the spell have their damage distributions, not distributions, as their damage distributions average together, and that average becomes a damage distribution of the spell. Alright, now I have to... Can I, like, analyze this at a table to know, like, what it's doing? Nope, I cannot. Well, what node does flux? It's Vitium. Okay. Take a focus that has... It's not air, though. What else is it called? Oh, it's air, A-E-R. Ooh, big difference. Air and Vitium nodes. The air node, both of these nodes inflict damage. The air aspect has a damage distribution of 100% bludgeoning, and the Vitium aspect has a damage distribution of, I don't know, I'm guessing 40 force. Yeah, 40 force, 30 necrotic, 30 psychic. Okay. 40% force, 30%, no, not 50, 30% necrotic, and 30% psychic. Both of these distributions are averaged together to have a final distribution of 50% bludgeoning, 20% force, 15% necrotic, and 15% psychic. Any other nodes in that spell that don't deal damage have no effect on the damage distribution. That's for aspects. Then we have the special distributions. DDD adds configurable distributions for the following sources. Taint defaults to, what does it default to? Taint is half force, half psychic, okay. 50% force, and, well, I'll do this. 50% force, 50% psychic. Psychic. Alright, and then we have liquid death. And I think this is like necrotic and force or something. Maybe it's just necrotic. It's just necrotic. Okay, that makes sense. 100% necrotic. Alright. No, not distributions. I'm distributions. I keep typing distributions. Distributions. There we go. I've fixed that typo that keeps happening. Alright, so that's all the integrations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all those articles. I need to now have compat. The list that DDD specifically has compatibility with. of mods that DDD specifically has had compatibility added. Most mods should work fine with DDD, but if the mod adds or introduces different damage sources, each thrown weapon is the same projectile and as such can't be given a different distribution depending on the weapon material. Tooltips to throwable weapons. This is compat.md. Alright, so now I'm going to need to know what else I compat with. What else do I compat with? A better survival. Should probably list these alphabetically. What does DD do with better survival? Distribution as the actual spear itself. Normally, each thrown spear entity is the same projectile, and as such can't have a different distribution depending on its material. DDD also adds projectile distribution tooltips to the spears. Okay, so that's better survival. As craft tweaker, electroblobs, blah blah blah. First aid, you're next on the list, buddy. Alright, what does this do? DDD makes changes to its tooltips that show actual armor values to now show their locational armor equivalent. Also uses the armor and armor effectiveness, and armor distribution, I should say, of the body parts that are able to be hit. When taking damage. If the body part, this is true, even if the body part doesn't take damage, just if it could have taken damage. Can't distinguish between a body part that could take damage and a body part that will take damage. Thus, an attack that randomly damages any body part will use all armor pieces and their armor distributions in damage calculation. First aid does a similar thing. More or less, right? Like, I wrote distur, not distree. Darn it. Okay, so this is just to drive home the fact that, like, because I know people with first aid and DDD are going to be like, okay, I'm gonna calc this out, right? And I'm gonna say, okay, well, this hits, it has this distribution, so it should do this damage, but wait, it's doing less damage because when it hit you, it could have hit like your chest and your head, and so it grabs both armor pieces and uses both armor pieces for the armor values. And it's like DDD's not actually changing any of that part, it's just changing the armor values that first aid sees through its armor distributions. So that's first aid. Like, it's quality tools. Yep, quality tools is next. It respects and accounts for the changes in armor / toughness, and changes in armor values provided by qualities. When distributing armor with armor distributions. That's good. After quality tools is part and weaponry, which I've done. Then it's tech guns. Then it's the between lands. Then that's it. Tech guns. Is it tech guns or is it tech guns? What's the difference? I know, right? Like, what am I doing? I think it's tech guns. Some combat is noticeable during play. Others are just to make DDD and whatever mod actually function together. Or just exclusively. And very little will be noticed during play other than it just works. So after tech guns, we have the between lands. By the between lands are handled slightly differently compared to regular shields. DDD allows shield distributions to be applied to the between lands shields, and also allows said distributions to actually work instead of blocking all damage. And in the compat section, I think it's right here. Yeah, we have shield classes, which I'm going to put as a separate section. Mods with compat. This is going to go here. Mods with compats, and then we're going to have other compat features, where I'm going to list the defined entity distributions, the defined item distributions, and the shield classes. Few other features that are designed to enhance compatibility and are all found in the compat section in the config. All right, there we go. Bada boink. Defined item distributions and defined entity distributions. Both are initially set to true. When set, only items slash entities that actually have a distribution set in the config will have a damage distribution given to them. All other items slash mobs that do not have a distribution listed in the config will instead use a default distribution, which is defined in the item damage, in the appropriate category, depending on the distribution. Item damage in damage category, armor in defense. Is it defense category or is it resistance category? It's resistance category. Etc. Default distribution. I can't believe I missed that. The default distribution will... Wait, yeah. Can't be changed. This is mainly useful for items, as some recipes require specific NBT to be present on an item to be usable in the recipe. Usable in the recipe. And with a damage distribution, or with a distribution given, would not work otherwise. Some shield items don't extend Minecraft's vanilla shield, and thus won't be recognized as a valid target for a shield distribution. I did distribution again. What is this? This is a list of simple or fully qualified Java class names for items that should count as shields and receive shield distribution. Just because a class name is here doesn't mean it can use shield distributions. It will get a shield distribution, but that shield distribution will only matter, for receiving a shield distribution. A shield distribution. Not listed under. Extensions of its own item shield core class, which doesn't extend Minecraft's vanilla item shield class, and thus the thermal shields can't receive shield distributions normally. However, item shield core is listed in the shield classes config to make them a valid target. Mods that introduce sword blocking could theoretically have the sword item classes have vanilla's item sword class added to this list to allow vanilla swords and anything that extends them to have shield distributions for blocking. Mods that reintroduce, I should say, sword blocking could theoretically have Vanilla's item sword class added to this list to allow Vanilla swords and anything that extends them to have shield distributions for blocking. There you go. I think that's pretty good. Because that lists the compat stuff. I don't know if I need anything else. Sorry, I'm looking through certain things in the config. I think for the most part, we're pretty good. I might want to add some additional things to like the config article on how one might go about setting up config and stuff, but I don't know. For now, this is good. This is a bunch of very useful articles on the config, or on like the mod integration and stuff like that, which is very useful. So, I will be publishing these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 articles. And, yeah. That is gonna wrap it for me. This is interesting. What happens if I do this? Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't have Adam set on this, like, scene. So, it can't actually show Adam here. And I don't feel like adding it right now. It doesn't really matter. So, yeah, that'll wrap it. It's a little short technically, but we got a lot of good work done. So I will get going, and I'll be back tomorrow for some actual yeah, actual Minecraft. I forgot. All right, thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.